What's up, everybody? Thanks for clicking this video. Thanks for tuning into my channel. My name is Simon Hill, Black American from Louisiana, coming to you live from Budapest, Hungary. Today is March 5th, 2026, about 10 p.m. where I'm at right now, and we are continuing our 20th book in our Book to React series. This is Invisible Man. Invisible Man by Ralph Ellison, the classic Black American fiction novel about a man who is invisible, who doesn't exist. It's sort of a parody, dark comedy, political text that I read many years ago, and I'm reading it again for a class that I'm taking now at the university I'm studying at, a class on race and gender in post-colonial America. And what's very bothersome for here in Hungary, post-colonial just means anything non-white. They'll slap post-colonial on food. This is post-colonial food day. Okay. Anyway, we're reading this for the post-colonial America. Doesn't make sense because post-colonial America is like Henry Thoreau. Post-colonial America is William Faulkner, but I digress. Anyway, we're reading this text here, and looking forward to getting into it. If you didn't see the previous episodes of Invisible Man that we read the prologue in chapter 1. In the prologue, the guy lives underground with lights all around him, and he's gone insane. In chapter 1, we hear his history about sort of how he got there. He was in a boxing match held by rich white men of his town, and he had to fight and brawl to almost the death to win a college scholarship after reciting some words from Booker T. Washington. And now in chapter 2, we're going to read him going to university. I'm looking forward to this part. This is one of my favorite chapters in this book. Hopefully you find it engaging as well. And any comments that we get in the comment section of either live stream will be replied to. I got 2 live streams going simultaneously at this time. So if you got anything you want to say it with your chest in the comment section, and we will get to it. Without further ado, let's go into chapter 2 of Invisible Man by Ralph Ellison. It was a beautiful college. The buildings were old and covered, with vines and the roads gracefully winding, lined with hedges and wild roses that dazzled the eyes in the summer sun. Honeysuckle and purple wisteria hung heavy from the trees, and white magnolias mixed with their scents in the bee-humming air. I've recalled it often here in my hole, how the grass turned green in the springtime and how the mockingbirds fluttered their tails and sang, how the moon shone down on the buildings, how the bell in the chapel tower rang out the precious short-lived hours, how the girls in bright summer dresses promenaded the grassy lawn. Many times here at night, I've closed my eyes and walked along the forbidden road that winds past the girls' dormitories, past the hall with the clock in the tower, its windows warmly aglow, on down past the small white house economics practice cottage, whiter still in the moonlight, and on down the road with its sloping and turning, paralleling the black powerhouse with its engines droning earth-shaking rhythms in the dark. Its windows red from the glow of the furnace onto where the road became a bridge over a dry riverbed, tangled with brush and clinging vines. The bridge of rustic logs made for trysting, but virginal and untested by lovers. On up the road, past the buildings, with the southern verandas half a city block long. To the sudden forking, barren of buildings, birds, or grass, where the road turned off to the insane asylum. I've always come this far and opened my eyes. The spell breaks and I try to re-see the rabbits, so tame through having never been hunted, that played in the hedges and along the road. And I see the purple and silver of thistle growing between the broken glass and sun-heated stones, the ants moving nervously in single file. And I turn and retrace my steps and come back to the winding road past the hospital, where at night in certain wards, the gay student nurses dispensed a far more precious thing than pills to lucky boys in the know. Okay, and I come to a stop at the chapel. Okay, and then it is suddenly winter, with the moon high above and the chimes in the steeple ringing and a sonorous choir of trombones rendering a Christmas carol. And over all is a quietness and an ache as though all the world were loneliness. And I stand and listen beneath the high-hung moon, hearing a mighty fortress is our God, majestically mellow on 4 trombones, and then the organ. The sounds float It's all over. Sorry. The sounds floats overall, clear like the night, liquid, serene, and lonely. And I stand as for an answer and see in my mind's eye the cabins surrounded by empty fields beyond red clay roads, and beyond a certain road a river, sluggish and covered with algae, more yellow than green in its stagnant stillness, past more empty fields to the sun-shrunk shacks at the railroad crossing, where the disabled veterans visited the whores, hobbling down the tracks on crutches and canes, sometimes pushing the legless, thighless one in a red wheelchair. And sometimes I listen to hear if music reaches that far, but recall only the drunken laughter of sad, sad whores. And I stand in the circle where 3 roads converge near the statue, where we drilled 4 abreast down the smooth asphalt and pivoted and entered the chapel. On Sundays, our uniforms pressed, shoes shined, minds laced up, eyes blind, like those of robots to visitors and officials on the low, whitewashed, reviewing stand. It's so long ago and far away that here in my invisibility, I wonder if it happened at all. That's sometimes how I think about my college years. My first 4 years, I'd be like, did that really happen? You know what I'm saying? It was all a blur and it went so fast, but it seemed so long. Felt like it would never end. Anyway, then in my mind's eye, I see the bronze statue of the college founder, the cold father symbol, his hands outstretched in the breathtaking gesture of lifting a veil that flutters in hard, metallic folds above the face of a kneeling slave. And I am standing puzzled, unable to decide whether the veil is really being lowered more firmly in place, whether I am witnessing a revelation or a more efficient blinding. And as I gaze, there is a rustle of wings, and I see a flock of starlings flighting before me. And when I look again, the bronze face, whose empty eyes look upon a world I have never seen, runs with liquid chalk, creating another ambiguity to puzzle my groping mind. Why is a bird-soiled statue more commanding than one that is clean? I love that paragraph so much. Bruh, I've been waiting to read this paragraph again for like the past 16 years, and I'm so glad I read it, man. That paragraph still hits the same. So in this story, he's talking about going to college and the beauty and also the disgust and just the weirdness and absurdity of the college campus, the university campus. Because when we say college to non-Americans, people think, oh, high school. No, college, university, 4 years, bachelor's, sloppy toppy in the dorm. Anyway, he's on the college campus and he meets this statue of the founder. And the founder is standing over a slave who is kneeling, right? And it looks like he's lifting the veil off of a slave. And when you look at a statue is still in place, right? And so if he's lifting the veil, it's held in perpetuity in motion. So it can be that he is either putting the veil back on or lifting it back up. It depends on interpretation. And then all these birds start flying around this bronze statue that he's looking at this HBCU. Presumably it's an HBCU, a historically black college or university. All these birds fly over this bronze statue, and bronze is the color brown. Even the eyes of the statue are brown, and the birds shit in the eyes of the statue. And so, what do you see? The eyes, which are windows to the soul, the perceivers for the subjector, are stained with whiteness. And it's like white tears over these bronze eyes. It's such a vivid image, so symbolic, hits so well. I love that paragraph so much. And man, that's one of my favorite sections of literature ever. I could just read that paragraph over and over and over again. Anyway, I'm going to continue here. So, oh, long green stretch of campus. Oh, quiet songs at dusk. Oh, moon that kissed the steeple and flooded the perfumed nights. Oh, bugle that called in the morning. Oh, drum that marched us militarily at noon. What was real? What solid? What more than a pleasant time-killing dream? For how could it have been real if now I am invisible? If real, why is it that I can recall in all that island of greenness no fountain but one that was broken, corroded, and dry? And why does no rain fall through my recollections, sound through my memories, soak through the hard, dry crust of the still so recent past? Why do I recall, instead of the odor of seed bursting in springtime, only the yellow contents of the cistern spread over the lawn's dead grass? Why and how? How and why? The grass did grow, and the green leaves appeared on the trees and filled the avenues with shadow and shade, as sure as the millionaires descended from the north on Founders' Day each spring. And how they arrived, came smiling, inspecting, encouraging, conversing in whispers, speech making into the wide open ears of our black and yellow faces, and each leaving a sizable check as he departed. I'm convinced it was the product of a subtle magic, the alchemy of moonlight, the school, a flower-studded wasteland, the rocks sunken, the dry winds hidden, the lost crickets chirping to yellow butterflies. And oh, those multi-millionaires. Oh, I didn't go to a HBCU. I went to a PWI, but yet and still, it's the same thing. Like the way Americans have like commodified and twisted American education, even back then, he's writing this, in the 1930s, 40s, something like that. Back then, universities are all about how rich people can sort of alleviate their guilt for extrapolating their wealth on behalf of the working class by donating large checks to these institutions that will then reify the justification for rich people having all the money. It's so like, and then when you think about the university, you think about the dead grass, covered, watered by these sprinklers. You get what I'm saying? Dead grass, watered by sprinklers, bronze statues with white bird shit in their eyes. It's just so vivid. It's just so well done. Just so well done. Oh my God, top tier writing. I love this book so much. Continuing here. They were all such a part of that other life that's dead that I cannot remember them all. Time was as I was, but neither that time nor that I are anymore. But this one I remember. Near the end of my junior year, I drove for him during the week he was on the campus. A face pink like St. Nicholas, topped with the shock of silk white hair, an easy, informal manner, even with me. A Bostonian, smoker of cigars, teller of polite Negro stories, shrewd banker, skilled scientist, director, philanthropist, 40 years a bearer of the white man's burden, and for 60, a symbol of the great traditions. We were driving, the powerful motor purring and filling me with pride and anxiety. The car smelled of mints and cigar smoke. Students looked up and smiled in recognition as we rolled slowly past. I had just come from dinner, and in bending forward to suppress a belch, I accidentally pressed the button on the wheel, and the belch became a loud and shattering blast of the horn. Folks on the road turned and stared. "I'm awfully sorry, sir," I said, worried lest he report me to Dr. Bledsoe, the president, who would refuse to allow me to drive again. "Perfectly all right, perfectly. Where shall I drive you, sir? Let me see." Through the rearview mirror, I could see him studying a wafer-thin watch, replacing it in the pocket of his checked waistcoat. His shirt was soft silk, set off with a blue and white polka-dotted bow tie. His manner was aristocratic, his movements dapper and suave. "It's early to go in for the next session," he said. "Suppose you just drive, anywhere you like. Have you seen all the campus, sir?" "Yes, I think so. I was one of the original founders, you know." "Gee, I didn't know that, sir. Then I'll have to try some of the roads." Of course I knew he was a founder, but I knew also that it was advantageous to flatter rich white folks. Perhaps he'd give me a large tip, or a suit, or a scholarship next year. "Anywhere else you like? The campus is part of my life, and I know my life rather well." "Yes, sir." He was still smiling. In a moment, the green campus with its vine-covered buildings was behind us. The car bounded over the road. How was the campus part of his life, I wondered? How did one learn his life rather well? "Young man, you're part of a wonderful institution. It is a great dream become reality." "Yes, sir," I said. "I feel as lucky to be connected with it as you no doubt do yourself. I came here years ago when all your beautiful campus was barren ground. There were no trees, no flowers, no fertile farmland. That was years ago, before you were born. I listened with fascination, my eyes glued to the white line dividing the highways, as my thoughts attempted to sweep back to the times of which he spoke. Even your parents were young. Slavery was just recently passed. Your people did not know in what direction to turn, and I must confess, many of mine didn't know in what direction they should turn either. But your great founder did. He was my friend, and I believed in his vision. So much so that sometimes I don't know whether it was his vision or mine. Shout out to Kamal up in the chat. We're reading Invisible Man, an essential reading text for Black literature. I would say pan Black literature. Everybody should read this book. I doubt somebody not from America would get all of the jokes and references because there's a lot of inside jokes and a lot of context you have to get. But I still think the invisibility that we have as Black people in the world, because we are not human. We are not seen as human. We cannot be fully human in a white supremacist world. It's so universal and it's so core to this text and also to Black life in the 21st century. I will continue here. So, the white man chuckled softly, wrinkles forming at the corner of his eyes. But of course, it was his. I only assisted. I came down with him to see the barren land and did what I could to render assistance. And it has been my pleasant fate to return each spring and observe the changes that the years have wrought. That has been more pleasant and satisfying to me than my own work. It has been a pleasant fate indeed. His voice was mellow and loaded with more meaning than I could fathom. As I drove, faded and yellowed pictures of the school's early days, displayed in the library, flashed across the screen of my mind, coming fitfully and fragmentarily to life. Photographs of men and women in wagons drawn by mule teams and oxen, dressed in black, dusty clothing, people who seemed almost without individuality, a black mob that seemed to be waiting, looking with blank faces, and among them the inevitable collection of white men and women in smiles, clear of features, striking, elegant, and confident. Until now, and although I could recognize the founder and Dr. Bledsoe among them, the figures in the photographs had never seemed actually to have been alive, but were more like signs or symbols one found on the last pages of the dictionary. But now I felt that I was sharing in a great work, and with the car leaping leisurely beneath the pressure of my foot, I identified myself with the rich man reminiscing in the rear seat. A pleasant fate, he repeated, and I hope yours will be as pleasant. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir, I said, pleased that he wished something pleasant for me. But at the same time, I was puzzled. How could anyone's fate be pleasant? I had always thought of it as something painful. No one I knew spoke of it as pleasant, not even Woodridge, who made us read Greek plays. We were beyond the farthest extension of the school-owned lands now, and I suddenly decided to turn off the highway down a road that seemed unfamiliar. There were no trees and the air was brilliant. Far down the road, the sun glared cruelly against a tin sign nailed to a barn. A lone figure bending over a hoe on the hillside raised up warily and waved, more a shadow against the skyline than a man. How far have we come? I heard over the shoulder. Just about a mile, sir. I don't remember this section, he said. I didn't answer. I was thinking of the first person who'd mentioned anything like fate in my presence, my grandfather. There had been nothing pleasant about it, and I had tried to forget it. Now, riding here in the powerful car with this white man who was so pleased with what he called his fate, I felt a sense of dread. My grandfather would have called this treachery, and I could not understand in just what way it was. Suddenly, I grew guilty of the realization that the white man might have thought so too. What would he have thought? Did he know that Negroes like my grandfather had been freed during those days just before the college had been founded? As we came to a side, I saw a team of oxen hitched to a broken-down wagon, the ragged driver dozing on the seat beneath the shade of a clump of trees. Did you see that, sir? I asked over my shoulder. What was it? The ox team, sir. Oh, no, I can't see it for the trees, he said, looking back. It's good timber. I'm sorry, sir. Shall I turn back? No, it isn't much, he said. Go on. I drove on, remembering the lean, hungry face of the sleeping man. He was the kind of white man I feared. The brown fields swept out to the horizon. A flock of birds dipped down, circled, swung up and out as though linked by invisible strings. Waves of heat danced above the engine hood. The tires sang over the highway. Finally, I overcame my timidity and asked him, Sir, why do you become interested in this school? I think, he said, thoughtfully raising his voice, it was because I felt even as a young man that your people were somehow closely connected with my destiny. Do you understand? Not so clearly, sir, I said, ashamed to admit it. You have studied Emerson, haven't you? Emerson, sir? Ralph Waldo Emerson. I was embarrassed because I hadn't. Not yet, sir. We haven't come to him yet. No? He said with a note of surprise. Well, never mind. I am a New Englander, like Emerson. You must learn about him, for he was important to your people. He had a hand in your destiny. Yes, perhaps that is what I mean. I had a feeling that your people were somehow connected with my destiny. That what happened to you was connected with what would happen to me. Okay, this is just all around funny, but it's also very dark. Okay, so this young boy who basically had to fight his way to get into this college is now doing basically an internship that's sort of like proto-slavery, because that's what all internships are, non-paid work, which should be illegal, but I digress. Anyway, he's doing an internship by driving around the rich white founder or co-founder of his historically black university somewhere in the South, in the model of one of Booker T. Washington's, trade schools and stuff like that. And here is this liberal white man saying ever since I was a young boy, I've had love for the Negro. I believed that the Negro needed our help. It was up to us, the rich, responsible, liberal whites, to save the Negro and lift them up. And he's using all this haughty language. And we know eventually he's going to turn racist. We know that's going to happen in this story. At least that's my prediction, right? But yeah, it's still funny how this guy has such a pretentiousness and a condescension in his tone and way of speaking, even through the text. And this is supposed to be a caricature of the liberal whites of that time, and I would argue also of this time as well. But let's continue here. I slowed the car, trying to understand. Through the glass, I saw him glazing. It's not glazing. I'm glazing this book. Anyway, I slowed the car, trying to understand. Through the glass, I saw him gazing at the long ash of his cigar, holding it delicately in his slender, manicured fingers. Yes, you are my fate, young man. Only you can tell me what it really is. Do you understand? I think I do, sir. I mean that upon you depends the outcome of the years I have spent in helping your school. That has been my life's work. Not my banking or my researches, but my firsthand organizing of human life. I saw him now, leaning toward the front seat, speaking with an intensity which had not been there before. It was hard not to turn my eyes from the highway and face him. There is another reason, a reason more important, more passionate, and yes, even more sacred than all the others, he said, no longer seeming to see me, but speaking to himself alone. Yes, even more sacred than all the others. A girl, my daughter. She was a being more rare, more beautiful, purer, more perfect, and more delicate than the wildest dream of a poet. I could never believe her to be my own flesh and blood. Her beauty was a wellspring of purest water of life. And to look upon her was to drink and drink and drink again. She was a rare, perfect creation, a work of purest art, a delicate flower that bloomed in the liquid light of the moon, a nature not of this world, a personality like that of some biblical maiden, a gracious and queenly woman. I found it difficult to believe her my own. Okay, I know parents should love their daughters, especially their daughters, you know what I mean? Because we live in this world where women are beaten down, right? So I think it's important for fathers to tell their daughters that they're beautiful, that they love them. But this is too much. He is saying my daughter was the most beautiful moonlight water and I just wanted to drink and drink and drink again. This is the equivalent. This is the early 20th century equivalent of saying, if she wasn't my daughter, I think we'd be dating. Or, what me and my daughter have in common, sex. This is Trump talk. This is Trump talk. You don't say this about your daughter, bro. I'm sorry, man. This is Epstein level, verbosity. This is Epstein level verbosity. Don't speak about your kids like that. You can call your kids cute. You can call your kids beautiful, but don't call your kids the beautiful moonlight water that you want to drink and drink again. No, 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 no. Anyway, continuing here. Suddenly, he fumbled in his vest pocket and thrust something over the back of the seat, surprising me. Here, young man, you owe much of your good fortune in attending such a school to her. I looked upon the tinted miniature framed engraved platinum. I almost dropped it. A young woman of delicate, dreamy features looked up at me. She was very beautiful, I thought at the time, so beautiful that I did not know whether I should express admiration to the extent I felt it or merely act polite. And yet I seemed to remember her or someone like her in the past. I know now that it was the flowing costume of soft, flimsy material that made for the effect. Today, dressed in one of the smart, well-tailored, angular, sterile, streamlined, engine-turned, air-conditioned modern outfits you see in the women's magazines. She would appear as ordinary as an expensive piece of machine tool jewelry and just as lifeless. Then, however, I shared something of his enthusiasm. She was too pure for life, he said sadly. Too pure and too good and too beautiful. We were sailing together, touring the world, just she and I, when she became ill in Italy. I thought little of it at the time, and we continued across the Alps. When we reached Munich, she was already fading away. While we were attending an embassy party, she collapsed. The best medical science in the world could not save her. It was a lonely return, a bitter voyage. I have never recovered. I have never forgiven myself. Everything I've done since her passing has been a monument to her memory. He became silent, looking with his blue eyes far beyond the field, stretching away in the sun. I returned the miniature, wondering what in the world had made him open his heart to me. That was something I never did. It was dangerous. First, it was dangerous if you felt like that about anything, because then you'd never get it, or something or someone would take it away from you. Then it was dangerous because nobody would understand you, and they'd only laugh and think you were crazy. So you see, young man, you are involved in my life quite intimately, even though you've never seen me before. You are bound to a great dream and to a beautiful monument. If you become a good farmer, a chef, a preacher, doctor, singer, mechanic, whatever you become, and even if you fail, you are my fate, and you must write me and tell me the outcome. I was relieved to see him smiling through the mirror. My feelings were mixed. Was he kidding me? Was he talking to me like someone in a book just to see how I would take it? Or could it be I was afraid to think that this rich man was just the tiniest bit crazy? How could I tell him his fate? He raised his head, and our eyes met for an instant in the glass. Then I lowered mine to the blazing white line that divided the highway. The trees along the road were thick and tall. We took a curve. Flocks of quail sailed up and over a field. Brown, sailing down, blending. Will you please tell me my fate, I heard. Sir, will you? Right now, sir, I asked with embarrassment. It is up to you, now, if you like. I was silent. His voice was serious, demanding. I could think of no reply. The motor purred. An insect crushed itself against the windshield, leaving a yellow mucus smear. I don't know, sir. This is only my junior year. But you'll tell me when you know. I'll try, sir. Good. When I took a quick glance into the mirror, he was smiling again. I wanted to ask him if being rich and famous and helping to direct the school to become what it wasn't enough, but I was afraid. What do you think of my idea, young man? He said. I don't know, sir. I only think that you have what you're looking for, because if I fail or leave school, it doesn't seem to me it would be your fault, because you helped make the school what it is. And you think that enough? Yes, sir. That's what the president tells us. You have yours and you got it yourself, and we have to lift ourselves up the same way. But that's only part of it, young man. I have wealth and a reputation and prestige. All that is true. But your great founder had more than that. He had tens of thousands of lives dependent upon his ideas and upon his actions. What he did affected your whole race. In a way, he had the power of a king, or in a sense of a god, that I've become to believe is more important than my own work, because more depends upon you. You are important because if you fail, I have failed by one individual, one defective cog. If it didn't matter so much before, but now I am growing old and it has become very important. But you don't even know my name, I thought, wondering what it was all about. I suppose it is difficult for you to understand how this concerns me, but as you develop, you must remember that I am dependent upon you to learn my fate. Through you and your fellow students, I become, let us say, 300 teachers, 700 trained mechanics, 800 skilled farmers, and so on. The way I can observe in terms of living personalities to what extent my money, my time, and my hopes have been fruitfully invested. I also construct a living memorial to my daughter. Understand, I can see the fruits produced by the land that your great founder has transformed from barren clay to fertile soil. So, what he's getting at here, and this is kind of deep, not so obvious, right? What he is saying here is like, through these great works that these rich white men of industry and wealth are able to do for the Negro, right? They're only extending their own legacy. So what they're saying is that the Negro is a means to an end rather than the end in and of itself. The improvement of the Negro is a means to an end. And this talks about a little bit of Afro-pessimist philosophy, but the only way the world or individuals who are fully human in the world can realize themselves is by some interaction with the other who can never be fully human, and that would be the Negro or black people. So this man lost his daughter, and I was assuming that his daughter was mixed race, so maybe he started an HBCU just to educate his mixed race, half black bastard daughter, but I guess that's not where the story is going, right? But anyway, he lost his daughter. He dedicated his life to making a bunch of money in the banking industry, and the only way he can really feel alive is by actually giving money to poor Negroes to build some type of trade school or some type of college. And this is how he is going to reach immortality. This is how he is going to realize the full potential of humanity, right? Which is sort of inverse from Afro-pessimism. Afro-pessimism says that humans have to beat on the black to realize their full humanity, right? Or anything that resembles the black. They say every few years, America has to grab a small, preferably brown country and throw them against the wall and beat them up and slap them up a few times to prove that America means business. What America is doing in Iran right now and has been doing in Palestine is reifying itself. That it is legitimate, that it is powerful, that we are the true humans. We are a true country. We are a true people. They are subhumans. They are not people. And because we can define who they are, we have fully realized ourselves. And so that's sort of like what I'm getting that the rich white man is saying right here. I have realized my full self by what I can do for these poor Negro souls. That's what I'm getting at here. So, yeah, I'm going to continue. His voice ceased, and I saw the strands of pale blue smoke drifting across the mirror and heard the electric lighter snap back on its cable into place behind the back of the seat. I think I understand you better now, sir, I said. Very good, my boy. Shall I continue in this direction, sir? By all means, he said, looking out at the countryside. I've never seen this section before. It's new territory for me. Half consciously, I followed the white line as I drove, thinking about what he had said. Then, as we took a hill, we were swept by a wave of scorching air, and it was as though we were approaching a desert. It almost took my breath away, and I leaned over and switched on the fan, hearing its sudden whir. Thank you, he said, as a slight breeze filled the car. We were passing a collection of shacks and log cabins now, bleached white and warped by the weather. Sun-tortured shingles lay on the roofs like decks of water-soaked cards spread out to dry. The houses consisted of 2 square rooms joined together by a common floor and roof with a porch in between. As we passed, we could look through to the fields beyond. I stopped in the car at this excited command in front of a house set off from the rest. Is that a log cabin? It was an old cabin with its chinks filled with chalk white clay, with bright new shingles patching its roof. Suddenly, I was sorry that I had blundered down the road. I recognized the place as soon as I saw the group of children in stiff new overalls who played near a rickety fence. Yes, sir, it's a log cabin, I said. It was a cabin of Jim Trueblood, a sharecropper who had brought disgrace upon the black community. Several months before, he had caused quite a bit of outrage up at the school, and now his name was never mentioned above a whisper. Even before that, he had seldom come near the campus, but he had been well liked as a hard worker who took good care of his family's needs, and as one who told the old stories with a sense of humor and a magic that made them come alive. He was also a good tenor singer, and sometimes when special white guests visited the school, he was brought up along with the members of a country quartet to sing what the officials called the primitive spirituals. When we assembled in the chapel on Sunday evenings, we were embarrassed by the early harmonies they sang. We were embarrassed by the earthly harmonies they sang. But since the visitors were awed and dared not laugh at the crude, high, plaintively animal sounds Jim Trueblood made as he led the quartet, that had all passed now with his disgrace, and what on the part of the school officials had been an attitude of contempt blunted by tolerance had now become a contempt sharpened by hate. I didn't understand in those pre-invisible days that their hate, and mine too, was charged with fear. How all of us at the college hated the black belt people, the peasants during those days. We were trying to lift them up, and they, like Trueblood, did everything it seemed to pull us down. Okay, so very interesting dynamic right there. He meets this guy, Jim Trueblood, after driving this white man off the college campus, and now they meet this guy who is part of the salt of the earth, black working class, and this man's probably very blue black, you know what I'm saying? Just singing the blues or proto blues. And he's embarrassed by it because true expressions of blackness are not what's going to lift the race. Being authentically black is not going to help us advance to the level we need to be. We're not going to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps by singing Negro spirituals and animal grunts, is how he feels, right? So very colorful way of expressing that. Anyway, it appears quite old, Mr. Norton said, looking across the bare, hard stretch of yard where two women dressed in new blue and white checkered ginghams were washing clothes in an iron pot. The pot was soot black, and the feeble flames that licked its side showed pale pink and bordered with black like flames in mourning. Both women moved with the weary, full-fronted motions of far-gone pregnancy. It is, sir, I said, that one and the other, too, like it, were built during slavery times. You don't say. I would have never believed that they were so enduring. Since slavery times. That's true, sir, and the white family that owned the land when it was a big plantation still lives in town. Yes, he said, I know that many old families still survive, and individuals too. The human stock goes on, even though it degenerates. But these cabins, he seemed surprised and confounded. Do you suppose those women know anything about the age and history of the place? The older ones looks as though she might. I doubt it, sir. They don't seem very bright. Bright, he said, removing his cigar. You mean that they wouldn't talk with me? He said suspiciously. Yes, sir, that's it. Why not? I didn't want to explain. It made me feel ashamed, but he sensed that I knew something impressed me. It's not very nice, sir, but I don't think those women would talk to us. We can explain that we're from the school. Surely they'll talk then. You may tell them who I am. Yes, sir, I said, but they hate us up at the school. They never come there. What? No, sir. And those children along the fence down there. They don't either, sir. But why? I don't really know, sir. Quite a few folks out this way don't, though. I guess they're too ignorant. They're not interested. But I can't believe it. The children had stopped playing and now looked silently at the car, their arms behind their backs and their new oversized overalls pulled tight over their little pot bellies as though they too were pregnant. What about their menfolk? I hesitated. Why did he find this so strange? He hates us, sir, I said. You say he? Aren't both the women married? I caught my breath. I'd made a mistake. The one old one is, sir, I said, reluctantly. What happened to the young woman's husband? She doesn't have any. That is, I. What is it, young man? Do you know these people? Only a little, sir. That was some talk about them on the campus a while back. What talk? Well, the young woman is the old woman's daughter. And, well, sir, they say, you see, they say the daughter doesn't have a husband. Oh, I see, but that shouldn't be so strange. I understand that your people, never mind. Is that all? Well, yes. Well, sir, yes, what else? They say that her father did it. What? Okay, nasty, nasty. Incest, 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 nasty. All right, yes, sir, that he gave her the baby. I heard the sharp intake of breath, like a toy balloon suddenly deflated. His face reddened. I was confused, feeling shame for the two women and fear that I had talked too much and offended his sensibilities. And did anyone from the school investigate this matter, he asked, at last. Yes, sir, I said. What was discovered? That it was true, they say. But how does he explain his doing such a monstrous thing? He sat back in the seat with his hands grasping his knees, his knuckles bloodless. I looked away down the heat-dazzling concrete of the highway. I wished we were back on the other side of the white line, heading back to the quiet green stretch of the campus. It is said that the man took both his wife and his daughter. Yes, sir. And that he is the father of both their children. Yes, sir. No, 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 said the white man. He sounded as though he were in great pain. I looked at him anxiously. What had happened? What had I said? Not that, no, he said with something like horror. I saw the sun blaze upon the new blue overalls as the man appeared around the cabin. His shoes were tan and new, and he moved easily over the hot earth. He was a small man, and he covered the yard with a familiarity that would have allowed him to walk in the blackest darkness with the same certainty. He came and said something to the women as he fanned himself with the blue bandana handkerchief, but they appeared to regard him sullenly, barely speaking, and hardly looking in his direction. Would that be the man? Mr. Norton asked. Yes, sir, I think so. Get out, he cried. I must talk with him. I was unable to move. I felt surprise and the dread and resentment of what he might say to Trueblood and his women, the questions he might ask. Why couldn't he leave them alone? Hurry. I climbed from the car and opened the rear door. He clambered out and almost ran across the road to the yard, as though compelled by some pressing urgency, which I could not understand. Then suddenly I saw the two women turn and run frantically behind the house, their movements heavy and flat-footed. I hurried behind him, seeing him stop when he reached the man and the children. They became silent, their faces clouding over, their features becoming soft and negative, their eyes bland and deceptive. They were crouching behind their eyes, waiting for him to speak, just as I recognized that I was trembling behind my own. Up close, I saw what I had not seen from the car. The man had a scar on his right cheek, as though he had been hit in the face with a sledge. The wound was raw and moist, and from time to time, he lifted his handkerchief to fan away the gnats. Mr. Norton stammered, I must talk with you. All right, sir, Jim Trueblood said without surprise and waited. Is it true? Did you? Sir? Trueblood asked as I looked away. You have survived, he blurted, but is it true? Sir, the farmer said, his brow wrinkling with bewilderment. I'm sorry, sir, I said, but I don't think he understands you. He ignored me, staring into Trueblood's face as though reading a message there which I could not perceive. You did and are unharmed, he shouted, his blue eyes blazing into the black face with something like envy and indignation. Trueblood looked helplessly at me. I looked away. I understood no more than he. You have looked upon chaos and are not destroyed. No, sir, I feels all right. Okay. You do? You feel no inner turmoil? No need to cast out the offending eye? Sir, answer me. I'm all right, sir, Trueblood said uneasily. My eyes is all right, too. And when I feels poorly in my gut, I take a little soda and it goes away. Okay. No. Let us get where there is shade, he said, looking about excitedly and going swiftly to where the porch cast a swath of shade. We followed him. The farmer placed his hand on my shoulder, but I shook it off, knowing that I could explain nothing. We sat on the porch in a semicircle in camp chairs, me between the sharecropper and the millionaire. The earth around the porch was hard and white from where wash water had long been thrown. How are you faring now? Mr. Norton asked. Perhaps I could help. We ain't doing so bad, sir. For they heard about what happened to us out here. I couldn't get no help from nobody. Now, a lot of folks is curious and goes out of their way to help. Even the biggity school folks up on the hill. Only there was a catch to it. They offered to send us clean out of the country, out of the county, pay our way and everything, and give me $100 to get settled with. But we likes it here, so I told them no. Then they sent a fellow out here, a big fellow too, and he said if I didn't leave, they was going to turn the white folks loose on me. It made me mad and it made me scared. Them folks up there to the school isn't strong with the white folks, and that scared me. But I thought when they first come out here that they was different from when I went up there a long time ago looking for some book learning and some points on how to handle my crops. That was when I had my own place. I thought they was trying to help me on account of I got 2 women due to birth about the same time. But I got mad when I found they was trying to get rid of us because they said we are a disgrace. Yes, sir, I got real mad. So I went down to see Mr. Buchanan, the boss man, and I told him about it, and he gave me a note to the sheriff and told me to take it to him. I did that just like he told me. I went to the jailhouse and give Sheriff Barbo the note, and he asked me to tell him what happened. And I told him, and he called in some more men, and they made me tell it again. They wanted to hear about the gal lots of times, and they give me something to eat and drink and some tobacco. Surprised me, because I was scared and expecting something different. Why, I guess there ain't a colored man in this county who ever got to take so much of the white folks' time as I did. So finally, they told me not to worry, and they was going to send up word to the school that I was to stay right where I am. Them big Negroes didn't bother me neither. It just goes to show you that no matter how biggity a Negro gets, the white folks can always cut him down. The white folks took up for me, and the white folks took to coming out here to see us and talk with us. Some of them was big white folks too, from the big school way across the state. Asked me lots about what I thought about things, about my folks and the kids, and wrote it all down in a book. But best of all, sir, I got more work now than I ever did have before. What a crazy story. So basically, these bougie Negroes are trying to kick out this, black man who's just humble farmer guy, speaks broken English, right? Wants to go to the school to get some book learning. And they tell him, you got to go. We'll pay you to leave because you're a bad look to us. We're the respectable Negroes who pass the paper bag test, and you are dirty. We need you gone. And he ends up calling the white folks to tell the uppity black folks to chill and leave him alone. Very interesting. Very interesting. So he talked willingly now, with the kind of satisfaction and no trace of hesitancy or shame. The old man listened with a puzzled expression as he held an unlit cigar in his delicate fingers. Things is pretty good now, the farmer said. Every time I think of how cold it was and what a hard time we was having, I gets the shakes. I saw him bite into a plug of chewing tobacco. Something tinkled against the porch, and I picked it up, gazing at it from time to time. It was a hard red apple stamped out of tin. You see, sir, it was cold and us didn't have much fire. Nothing but wood, no coal. I tried to get help, but wouldn't nobody help us. And I couldn't find no work for nothing. It was so cold, all of us had to sleep together. Me, the old lady, and the gal. That's how it started, sir. He cleared his throat, his eyes gleaming and his voice taking on a deep, incantatory quality, as though he had told the story many, many times. Flies and fine white gnats swarmed about his wound. That's the way it was, he said. Me on one side and the old lady on the other and the gal in the middle. It was dark, plum black, black as the middle of a bucket of tar. The kids were sleeping all together in their bed over in the corner. I must have been the last one to go to sleep because I was thinking about how to get some grub for the next day and about the gal and the young boy, what was starting to hang around her. I didn't like him, and he kept coming through my thoughts, and I made up my mind to warn him away from the gal. It was black dark, and I heard one of the kids whimper in his sleep, and the last few sticks of kindling crackling and settling in the stove, and the smell of the fat meat seemed to get cold and still in the air, just like meat grease when it gets set in a cold plate of molasses. And I was thinking about the gal and his boy and feeling her arms beside me and hearing the old lady snoring with a kind of moaning and a groaning on the other side. I was worrying about my family, how they was going to eat and all, and I thought about when the gal was little, like the youngins, sleeping over in the corner, and how I was her favorite over the old lady. There we was, breathing together in the dark. Only I could see him in my mind, knowing him like I do. In my mind, I looked at them all one by one. The gal looks just like the old lady did when she was young and I first met her, only better looking. You know, we getting to be a better looking race of people. Ooh. Anyway, I could hear him breathing, and I thought I hadn't been it. And though I hadn't been, sorry. Anyway, I could hear him breathing, and though I hadn't been, it made me sleepy. Then I heard the gal say, "Daddy," soft and low in her sleep, and I looked, trying to see if she was still awake. But all I could do is smell her and feel her breath on my hand when I go to touch her. She said it so soft I couldn't be sure I had heard anything, so I just laid there listening. Seems like I heard a whippoorwill calling, and I thought to myself, go on away from here. We'll whip old Will when we find him. Then I heard the clock up there at the school striking 4 times lonesome like. Then I got to thinking about way back when I left the farm and went to live in Mobile, and about a gal I had me then. I was young then, like this young fellow here. Us lived in a 2-story house alongside the river, and at night in the summertime we used to lay in bed and talk. And after she'd gone off to sleep, I'd be awake, looking out at the lights coming up over the water and listening to the sounds of the boats moving along. They used to have musicianers on them boats, and sometimes I used to wake her up to hear the music when they come up the river. I'd be laying there and it would be quiet, and I could hear it coming from away, way off. Like when you quail hunting and it's getting dark and you can hear the boss bird whistling, trying to get the covey together again. And he's coming toward you slow and whistling soft, 'cause he knows you somewhere around with your gun. Still, he got to round them up, so he keeps on coming. Them boss quails is like a good man. What he got to do, he do. Well, that's the way the boats used to sound, coming close to you from far away. First one will be coming to you when you almost sleep, and it sounded like somebody hitting at you slow with a big shiny pick. You see the pick points coming straight at you, coming slow too, and you can't dodge. Only when it goes to hit you, it ain't no pick at all, but somebody far away breaking little bottles of all kinds of colored glass. It's still coming at you though, still coming. Then you hear it close up, like when you up in the 2nd-story window and you look down on a wagon full of watermelons and you see one of them young juicy melons split wide open and laying all spread out and cool and sweet on top of all the striped green ones, like it's waiting just for you. So you can see how red and ripe and juicy it is, and all the shiny black seeds it's gotten on. And you could hear the side wheels splashing like they don't want to wake nobody up. And us, me and the gal, would lay there feeling like we was rich folks, and them boys on the boats would be playing sweet as good peach brandy wine. Then the boats would be passed, and the lights would be gone from the window, and the music would be going too. Kind of like when you watch a gal in a red dress and wide straw hat going past you down a lane with the trees on both sides. And she's plump and juicy and kind of switching her tail because she knows you watching and you know she know, and you just stand there and watches till you can't see nothing but the top of her red hat. And then that goes, and you know that she done dropped behind a hill. I seen me a gal like that once. All I could hear then would be the Mobile gal, name of Margaret. She be breathing beside me, and maybe about that time she'd say, "Daddy, you still awake?" And then I'd grunt, "Uh-huh," and drop on off gentmans. Jim Trueblood said. I likes to recall them Mobile days. Well, it was like that when I heard Mattie Lou say "Daddy." And I knowed she must have been dreaming about somebody from the way she said it. And I gets mad wondering if it's that boy. I listened to her mumbling for a while, trying to hear if she calls his name, but she don't. And I remember that they say if you put the hand of a person who's talking in his sleep in warm water, he'll say it all, but the water is too cold, and I wouldn't have done it anyway. But I'm realizing that she's a woman now. When I feels her turn and squirm against me and throw her arm across my neck, up where the cover didn't reach, and I was cold. She said something I couldn't understand, like a woman says when she wants to tease and please a man. I knowed then she was grown, and I wondered how many times it done happened, and was it that doggone boy? I moved her arm and it was soft, but it didn't wake her. So I called her, but that didn't wake her neither. Then I turned my back and tried to move away, though there wasn't much room, and I could still feel her touching me, moving close to me. Ugh. Then I must have dropped into the dream. I have to tell you about that dream. I looked at Mr. Norton and stood up, thinking that now was a good time to leave. But he was listening to True Blood so intensely, he didn't see me, and I sat down again, cursing the farmer silently. To hell with this dream. I don't quite remember it at all, but I remember that I was looking for some fat meat. I went to the white folks downtown and they said go see Mr. Broadnecks, that he'd give it to me. Well, he lives up on a hill and I was climbing up there to see him. Seems like that was the highest hill in the world. That the more I climbed, the farther away Mr. Broadnecks' house seemed to get. But finally I do reach there. And I'm so tired and restless to get to the man. I goes through the front door. I know it's wrong, but I can't help it. I goes in and I'm standing in a big room full of lighted candles and shiny furniture and pictures on the walls and soft stuff on the floor. But I don't see a living soul. So I calls his name, but still don't nobody come and don't nobody answer. So I sees a door and goes through that door, and I'm in a big white bedroom. Like I see one time was a little boy and went to the big house with my mom. Everything in the room was white, and I'm standing there knowing I got no business in there. But there anyhow. It's a woman's room too. I tried to get out, but I don't find the door. And all around me I can smell woman, can smell it getting stronger all the time. Then I looks over in a corner and sees one of them tall grandfather clocks, and I hears it striking, and the glass door is opening, and a white lady is stepping out of it. She got on a nightgown of soft white silky stuff and nothing else, and she looks straight at me. I don't know what to do. I want to run, but the only door I see is the one in the clock she's standing in. And anyway, I can't move, and this here clock is keeping up a heap of racket. It's getting faster and faster all the time. I tries to say something, but I can't. Then she starts to scream, and I thinks I done gone deaf. 'Cause though I can see her mouth working, I don't hear nothing. Yet I can still hear the clock, and I tries to tell her I'm just looking for Mr. Broadnecks, but she don't hear me. Instead, she runs up and grabs me around the neck and holds tight, trying to keep me out of the clock. I don't know what to do then, sure enough. I tries to talk to her, and I tries to get away, but she's holding me, and I'm scared to touch her because she's white. Then I get so scared that I throws her on the bed and tries to break her hold. That woman just seemed to sink out of sight. That their bed was so soft. It's sinking down so far I think it's going to smother both of us. Then swoosh, all of a sudden a flock of little white geese flies out of the bed like they say you see when you go to dig for buried money. Lord. They hadn't no more and disappeared. Then I heard a door open. And Mr. Broadneck's voice said, "They're just niggas. Leave 'em do it." Ooh, crazy. How can he tell this white man, I thought, when he knows they'll say that all Negroes do such things? I looked at the floor, a red mist of anguish before my eyes. And I can't stop, although I got feeling something is wrong. I get loose from the woman now, and I'm running for the clock. At first, I couldn't get the door open. It had some kind of crinkly stuff like steel wool on the facing. But I gets it open and gets inside, and it's hot and dark in there. It goes up a dark tunnel, up near where the machinery is making all the noise, and it's heat. It's like the power plant they got up at the school. It's burning hot as ifin the house was caught on fire. And I starts to running, trying to get out. I runs and runs till I should be tired, but I ain't tired, but feeling more rested as I runs and running so good it's like flying, and I'm flying and sailing and floating right up over the town. Only I'm still in the tunnel. Then way up ahead I sees a bright light like a jack-o'-lantern over a graveyard. It gets brighter and brighter, and I know I got to catch up with it or else. Then all at once, I was right up with it, and it burst like a great big electric light in my eyes and scalded me all over. Only it wasn't a scald, but like I was drowning in a lake where the water was hot on the top and had cold, numbing currents down under it. Then all at once then all at once I'm through it, and I'm relieved to be out in the cool daylight again. I wake up intending to tell the old lady about my crazy dream. Morning done come, and it's getting almost light. And there I am, looking straight in Maddie Lou's face, and she's beating me and scratching and trembling and shaking and crying all at the same time, like she's having a fit. I'm too surprised to move. She's crying, "Daddy, daddy, oh daddy," just like that. And all at once, I remember the old lady. She's right beside us snoring, and I can't move because I figures if I moved, it would be a sin. And I figures, too, that if I didn't move, maybe it ain't no sin because it happened when I was asleep. Although maybe sometimes a man can look at a little old pigtail gal and see him a whore. You all know that? Anyway, I realize that if I don't move, the old lady will see me. I don't want that to happen. That would be worse than sin. I'm whispering to Maddie Lou, trying to keep her quiet, and I'm figuring how to get myself out of the fix I'm in without sinning. I almost chokes her. But once a man gets himself in a tight spot like that, there ain't much he can do. It ain't up to him no longer. There I was trying to get away with all my might, yet having to move without moving. I flew in, but I had to walk out. I had to move without moving. I done thought about it since the heat. And when you think right hard, you see that that's the way things has always been with me. That's just about been my life. There was only one way I can figure that I could get out. That was with a knife. But I didn't have no knife. And if you all ever seen them geld them young boar pigs in the fall, you know I know that was too much to pay to keep from sinning. Everything was happening inside of me like a fight was going on. Then just the very thought of the fix I'm in puts the iron back in me. Then if that ain't bad enough, Maddie Lou can't hold out no longer and gets to moving herself. First she was trying to push me away, and I'm trying to hold her down to keep from sinning. Then I'm pulling away and shushing her to be quiet so as not to wake her ma, when she grabs hold to me and holds tight. She didn't want me to go then, and to tell the honest to God truth, I found that I didn't want to go neither. I guess I felt then at that time, and although I've been sorry since, just about like that fellow did down in Birmingham. That one what locked himself in his house and shot at them police until they set fire to the house and burned him up. I was lost. The more wrangling and twisting we done trying to get away, the more we wanted to stay. So like that fellow, I stayed. I had to fight it out to the end. He might have died, but I suspects now that he got a heap of satisfaction before he went. I know there ain't nothing like what I went through. I can't tell how it was. It's like when a real drinking man gets drunk, or when a real sanctified religious woman gets so worked up she jumps out of her clothes, or when a real gambling man keeps on gambling when he's losing. You got to hold to it, and you can't let go even though you want to. "Mr. Norton, sir," I said in a choked voice, "it's time we were getting back to campus. You'll miss your appointments." He didn't even look at me. "Please," he said, waving his hand in annoyance. Here's how I'm interpreting True Blood's story. It sounds like he was suffering from a very bad case of post-traumatic slave syndrome. I'm getting hints from his story of his dream of that he was a breeder back in the day, because he said he broke into Mass's house and he's choking this white woman in the bed but at the same time, there's sexual overtones in it. And then the white man, the massa, opens up the door and says, those are just the N words. Let them keep going at it. Meaning, like, that's a part of the process of slavery, right? You have to have your slaves breed, right? So I'm getting hints of that. And also that it was, you know, both of them having sort of like this fever dream, and he's giving this sort of excuse that I was in a dream holding on to my daughter. I guess I was erect and I didn't want to sin even though I had penetrated her. I didn't move or thrust. Therefore, that's not sinning. But she wakes up and she's trying to get away. And I felt like that was a sin, so I'm holding on to her. Like, his story makes no sense, you know what I mean? And it's incestuous, rape at its very core. Because this is no excuse to say, oh, my daughter was trying to get away, so I'm trying to hold on to her, and I wanted to get away, so I'm holding on to her, but I don't want to leave, and she don't want to leave. Like, it doesn't make sense. But I assume that Ralph Ellison is telling this story of True Blood, explaining how he had sex with his daughter, right? If the guy is not lying. He is saying this because the rich white man was saying earlier how beautiful his daughter was, how much he wanted to drink her water. And his daughter died, and he's still very upset about it. And I guess, once again, the old white man is sort of living vicariously through the life of the Negro, right? Harkening back to the point I was making earlier, the only way for humans to really live in this world, true humans, full humans, not black people, because black people can never be full humans. We are socially dead in a white supremacist world through an Afro-pessimist lens. The only way true humans can live is if they see the Negro, black people, not have full human rights, or act or live in inhumane ways, or be treated inhumanely. So maybe that's why this rich white man is so raptured by this man's story, because he relates to it too. He wants to sleep with his own daughter. He wanted to do this, but he can't. And so he's living vicariously through this Negro. And also at the same time pitying this Negro for doing something so heinous and wicked, which the good, respectable white man who founded this university would say he would never do, right? So that's how I'm interpreting this story. Anyway, I'm going to continue here. True Blood seemed to smile at me behind his eyes as he looked from the white man to me and continued. I couldn't even let go when I heard Kate scream. It was a scream to make your blood run cold. It sounds like a woman who is watching a team of wild horses run down her baby child and she can't move. Kate's hair is standing up like she done seen a ghost, and her gown is hanging open and the veins in her neck is about to bust. And her eyes, Lord them eyes. I'm looking up to her from where I'm laying on the pallet with Maddie Lou, and I'm too weak to move. She screams and starts picking up the first thing that comes to her hand and throwing it. Some of them misses me and some of them hits me. Little things and big things. Something cold and strong stinking hits me and wets me and bangs against my head. Something hits the wall, boom, a loom, like a cannonball, and I tries to cover up my head. Kate's talking the unknown tongue like a wild woman. Wait a minute, Kate, I says, stop it. Then I hears her stop a second, and I hears her running across the floor. And I twist and looks, and Lord, she done got my double-barreled shotgun. And while she's foaming at the mouth and cocking the gun, she gets her speech. Get up, she says. Hey, nah, Kate, I says. Goddamn your soul to hell. Get up off of my child. But woman, Kate, listen, don't talk, move. Down that thing, Kate. No down, up. That there's a buckshot, woman, buckshot. Yes, it is. Down it, I say. I'm going to blast your soul to hell. You going to hit Maddie Lou. Not Maddie Lou, you. It spreads, Kate. Maddie Lou. She moves around, aiming at me. I done warned you, Jim. Kate, it was a dream. Listen to me. You the only one who listened. Up from there. She jerks the gun and shuts my eyes. But instead of thunder and lightning busting at me, I hears Maddie Lou scream in my ear, Mama, ooh, Mama. I rolls almost over, and then Kate hesitates. She looks at the gun, and she looks at us, and she shivers a minute like she got the fever. Then all at once she drops the gun, and zip. Quick as a cat, she turns and grabs something off the stove. It catches me like something digging into my side with a sharp spade. I can't breathe. She's throwing and talking all at the same time. And when I looks up, man, she's got an iron in her hand. I hollers, no blood, Kate. Don't spill no blood. You low down dog, she says. It's better to spill than to foul. Nah, Kate, things ain't what they appear. Don't make no blood sin on account of no dream sin. Shut up, shut up, N-word, said the woman. You done fouled. But I sees there ain't no use reckoning or reasoning with her then. I makes up my mind that I'm going to take whatever she give me. It seems to me that all I can do is take my punishment. I tell myself, maybe if you suffer for it, it will be best. Maybe you owe it to Kate to let her beat you. You ain't guilty, but she thinks you is. You don't want her to beat you, but she thinks she got to beat you. You want to get up, but you too weak to move. I was too. I was frozen too where I was like a youngin'. What done stuck his lip to a pump handle in the wintertime? I was just like a jaybird that the yellow jackets done stung till he's paralyzed, but still alive in his eyes, and he's watching him sting his body to death. It made me seem to go way back a distance in my head, behind my eyes, like I was standing behind a windbreak during a storm. I looks out and sees Kate running toward me, dragging something behind her. I tries to see what it is because I'm curious about it, and sees her gown catch on the stove and her hand coming in sight with something in it. I thinks to myself, it's a handle. What she got the handle to? Then I see her right up on me, big. She's swinging her arms like a man swinging a 10-pound sledge, and I see the knuckles of her hand is bruising and bleeding, and I see its catch in her gown, and sees her gown go up, and I can see her thighs and see how rusty and gray the cold done made her skin. And I see her bend and straightening up, and hears her grunt, and I sees her swing and smells her sweat, and I know by the shape of the shining wood what she's got to put on me. Lord, yes, I sees it catch on a quilt this time and raise that quilt up and drop it on the floor. Then I see the axe come free. It's shining from the sharpening. I'd give it a few days before. And man, way back in myself behind the windbreak, I says, nah, Kate, Lord, Kate, nah. Suddenly, his voice was so strident that I looked up startled. Trueblood seemed to look straight through Norton, his eyes glassy. The children paused guiltily at their play, looking toward their father. I might as well been pleading with the switch engine, he went on. I sees it coming down. I sees the light catching on it. I sees Kate's face all mean, and I tightens my shoulders and stiffen my neck, and I waits. 10 million back-breaking years. It seems to me like I waits. I wait so long I remember all the wrong things I ever done. I wait so long I open my eyes and closes them and opens my eyes again and sees it falling. It's falling fast as flops from a 6-foot ox. And while I'm waiting, I feel something wind up inside of me and turn to water. I sees it, Lord. Shout out to Alan Diaz up in the chat. Shout out to Alan Diaz. So he says, I sees it, and I seen it twist my head aside. Couldn't help it. Kate was a good aim, but for that. I moves. Though I meant to keep still, I moved. Anybody but Jesus Christ himself would have moved. I feel like the whole side of my face is smashed clear off. It hits me like hot lead, so hot that instead of burning me, it numbs me. I'm laying there on the floor, but inside me, I'm running around in circles like a dog with his back broke, and back into that numbness with my tail tucked between my legs. I feel like I don't have no skin on my face no more, only the naked bone. But this is the part I don't understand. More in the pain and numbness I feels relief. Yes, and to get some more of that relief, I seems to run out from behind the windbreak again and up to where Kate's standing with the axe. I opens my eyes and waits. That's the truth. I want some more, and I waits. I see her swinging it, looking down on me, and I see it in the air, and I hold my breath. Then all of a sudden, I see it stop like somebody done reached down through the roof and caught it. And I sees her face with a spasm, and I sees the axe fall back of her this time and hit the floor. And Kate spews out some puke, and I close my eyes and waits. I can hear her moaning and stumbling out the door and falling off the porch into the yard. Then I hears her puking like all her guts is coming up by the roots. Then I look down and see blood running all over Matty Lou. It's my blood. My face is bleeding. That gets me to moving. I gets up and stumbles out to find Kate, and there she is under the cottonwood tree out there on her knees, and she's moaning. What have I done, Lord? What have I done? She's drooling green stuff and gets to puking again. And when I go, I'm going to throw up, man. This is hard to read. Oh, my God. She's drooling again. She's drooling green stuff and gets to puking again. And when I goes to touch her, it gets worse. I stands there holding my face and trying to keep the blood from flowing and wonders what on earth is going to happen. I look up at the morning sun and expect something for it to thunder. But it's already bright and clear and the sun coming up and the birds is chirping. And I gets more afraid than if a bolt of lightning had struck me. I yells, have mercy, Lord, Lord have mercy, and waits. And there's nothing but the clear, bright morning sun. But don't nothing happen, and I know then that something worse than anything I ever heard about is in store for me. I must have stood there stark stone still for half an hour. I was still standing there when Kate got off her knees and went back into the house. The blood was running all over my clothes, and the flies was after me, and I went back inside to try and stop it. When I see Matty Lou stretched out there, I think she's dead. Ain't no color in her face, and she ain't hardly breathing. She gray in the face, and I tries to help her, but I can't do no good. And Kate won't speak to me, nor look at me even. And I think maybe she plans to try to kill me again, but she don't. I'm in such a daze, I just sit there the whole time while she bundles up the youngins and takes them down the road to Will Nichols. I can see, but I can't do nothing. You know what's crazy? This is such a vivid chapter. This is such a wild and crazy story. I'm surprised that I don't remember it. I don't remember this part of the book that I read many years ago. I don't remember this, but it's such a wild and vivid story. It sounds like something like you would read from the writer of Beloved. God, who wrote Beloved and the blue is the bluest color or something like that, right? God, I forgot her name. Toni Morrison. It sounds like something Toni Morrison would write. But yeah, Ellison definitely came before Morrison, and I'm sure Morrison read Ellison. So I don't know if Morrison got this whole incestuous thing as a central theme or a plot point from Ellison, but I digress. Let's continue here. And I'm still sitting there when she comes back with some women to see about Matty Lou. Won't nobody speak to me, though they looks at me like I'm some new kind of cotton picking machine. I feels bad. I tells them how it happened in a dream, but they scorns me. I gets plumb out of the house then. I goes to see the preacher, and even he don't believe me. He tells me to get out of his house, that I'm the most wicked man he's ever seen, and that I better go confess my sin and make my peace with God. I leaves trying to pray, but I can't. I thinks and thinks until I thinks my brain gon' bust about how I'm guilty and how I ain't guilty. I don't eat nothing and I don't drink nothing and I can't sleep at night. Finally, one night, way early in the morning, I looks up and sees the stars and I start singing. I don't mean to. I don't think about it, just start singing. I don't know what it was, but some kind of church song, I guess. All I know is I ends up singing the blues. I sings me some blues that night ain't never been sang before. And while I'm singing them blues, I make up my mind that I ain't nobody but myself and I ain't nothing I can do but let whatever is going to happen, happen. I made up my mind that I was going to go back home and face Kate. Yeah, and face Matty Lou too. When I gets here, everybody thinks I done run off. There's a heap of women here with Kate and I runs them out. And when I runs them out, I sends the youngins out to play and locks the door and tells Kate and Matty Lou about the dream and how I'm sorry. But that what done happen is done happen. How come you don't go on way and leave us, is the first words Kate says to me. Ain't you done enough to me and this child? I can't leave you, I says. I'm a man and a man don't leave his family. She says, nah, you ain't no man. No man do what you did. I'm still a man, I says. But what you gonna do after it happens, says Kate. After what happens? When your black abomination is birthed to bawl your wicked sin before the eyes of God. She must have learned them words from the preacher. Birth, I says, who birth? Both of us. Me birth and Matty Lou birth. Both of us birth, you dirty, low-down, wicked dog. That like to killed me. I can't understand then why Matty Lou won't look at me and won't speak a word to nobody. If you stay, I'm going over and get Aunt Chloe for both of us. Kate says, she says, I don't aim to birth no sin for folks to look at all the rest of my life. And I don't aim for Matty Lou to neither. You see, Aunt Chloe is a midwife, and even weak as I am from this news, I knows I don't want her fooling with my women's folks. That would have been piling sin on top of sin. So I told Kate, nah, that if Aunt Chloe come near this house, I'd kill her, old as she is. I done it too. That settles it. I walks out the house and leaves them here to cry it out between them. I wanted to go off by myself then, but I don't do no good it don't do no good trying to run off from something like that. It follows you wherever you go. Besides, to get right down to the facts, there wasn't nowhere I could go. I didn't have a crying dime. Things got to happening right off. The N-words, the Negroes up at the school come down to chase me off, and that made me mad. I went to see the white folks then, and they gave me help. That's what I don't understand. I've done the worst thing a man could ever do in his family, and instead of chasing me out of the county, they give me more help than they ever give any other colored man, no matter how good a Negro he was. Except that my wife and daughter won't speak to me. I'm better off than I ever been before. And even if Kate won't speak to me, she took the new clothes I brought her from up in town, and now she's getting some eyeglasses made, what she been needing for so long. But what I don't understand is how I done the worst thing a man can do in his own family, and instead of things getting bad, they got better. The Negroes up at the school don't like me, but the white folks treat me fine. Interesting. He was some farmer. As I listened, I had been so torn between humiliation and fascination that to lessen my sense of shame, I had kept my attention riveted upon his intense face. That way I did not have to look at Mr. Norton. But now as the voice ended, I sat looking down at Mr. Norton's feet. Out in the yard, a woman's hoarse contralto intoned to him. Children's voices were raised in playful chatter. I sat bent over, smelling the sharp, dry odor of wood burning in the hot sunlight. I stared at the two pairs of shoes before me. Mr. Norton's were white, trimmed with black. They were custom made, and there beside the cheap tan boards of the farmer, they had the elegantly slender, well-bred appearance of fine gloves. Finally, someone cleared his throat and looked up to see Mr. Norton staring silently into True Blood's eyes. I was startled. His face was drained of color. With his bright eyes burning into True Blood's black face, he looked ghostly. True Blood looked at me questioningly. Listen to the youngins, he said in embarrassment, playing London Bridge falling down. Something was going on which I didn't get. I had to get Mr. Norton away. Are you all right, sir? I asked. He looked at me with unseeing eyes. All right, he said. Yes, sir. I mean that I think it's time for the afternoon session. I hurried on. He stared at me blankly. I went to him. Are you sure you're all right, sir? Maybe it's the heat, True Blood said. You got to be born down here to stand this kind of heat. Perhaps, Mr. Norton said. It is the heat. We better go. He stood shakily, still staring intently at True Blood. Then I saw him removing a red Moroccan leather wallet from his coat pocket. The platinum-framed miniature came with it, but he did not look at it this time. Here, he said, extending a banknote. Please take this and buy the children some toys from me. True Blood's mouth fell agape. His eyes widened and filled with moisture as he took the bill between trembling fingers. It was $100 bill, which back then might have been 1,000. I'm ready, young man, Mr. Norton said, his voice a whisper. I went before him to the car and opened the door. He stumbled a bit climbing in, and I gave him my arm. His face was still chalk white. Drive me away from here, he said in a sudden frenzy. Away. Yes, sir. I saw True Blood wave as I threw the car into gear. You bastard, I said under my breath. You no good bastard. You get $100 bill. When I had turned the car and started back, I saw him still standing in the same place. Suddenly, Mr. Norton touched me on the shoulder. I must have a stimulant, young man, a little whiskey. Yes, sir. Are you all right, sir? A little faint. but a stimulant. His voice trailed off. Something cold formed within my chest. If anything happened to him, Dr. Bledsoe would blame me. I stepped on the gas, wondering where I could get him some whiskey. Not in the town, that would take too long. There was only one place, the Golden Day. I'll have some in a few minutes, sir, I said. I'll have you some in a few minutes, sir, I said. As soon as you can, he said. So, yeah, my interpretation of that text is still the same. This white liberal man, reifies himself and his status as a good person by donating to Negro colleges, and he reifies himself as a good person by being aghast and appalled at the horrible, wicked crimes of Negroes. In this case, a father who commits incest in a fever sleep dream that's inspired by his former enslavement, or, in proximity to enslavement, right? Very deep, very profound. It makes me think about this quote that I heard many years ago, where somebody said that white people love Gucci Mane more than black people. And if you know Gucci Mane, then you understand why that's funny and somewhat true. When I was in university at Loyola University, the biggest Project Pat fan I've ever met, and possibly the biggest Project Pat fan ever on earth, was a white kid I knew named Frenchie, who collected every single Project Pat song. Literally every single Project Pat song he knew word for word. Mixtapes, albums. He showed me his file, opened up his iTunes. Nothing but Project Pat. Nothing but Project Pat. You get what I'm saying? So I do think there's a morbid fascination with black folks and their dysfunction by some white folks, right? Which is why, gangster rap is beloved, and the Maury Show, when it was on TV, is beloved, and reality TV, right? Because no matter how popular these things are, like Love and Hip Hop or Basketball Wives or Jay-Z or Tupac or Young Jeezy, right? These are, cultural products derived from dysfunction in black life that's commodified and sold to white audiences, and they eat it up, right? And why do they eat it up? Because black dysfunction reifies their own humanity and continues our dehumanization. That's my take. But let me know what you think of chapter 2 of Invisible Man, a very interesting chapter, profound text, had one of my favorite paragraphs in it, and looking forward to continuing reading this text tomorrow. We're going to read it chapter by chapter, just one chapter per day, because one chapter takes, an hour or an hour and a half to get through. So hopefully you found this interesting. Catch y'all next time. All power to the people, and peace.